Welcome to the Art of Healing podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to helping you connect with your mind, body, and spirit. This is Charlize, physician and Reiki master, and thank you so much for joining me. I would like to remind you that although I'm a physician, the information you receive in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. You can find my full disclaimer at my website, www.healingartshealthandwellness.com. If you like what you hear on this podcast, sign up for my weekly newsletter. Check your show notes for more information and for the link to sign up. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to the Art of Healing podcast. This is Charlize. In today's topic, I wanted to discuss how Reiki can be a lifestyle, or maybe rather how it impacts your lifestyle. Um, the practice of Reiki was originally designed to be delivered to the self-healing, to be delivered from a trained practitioner to a client or recipient, um, and to be delivered in other ways by distance and to groups and to objects, situations, communities. Um, but there's another side to Reiki that I find to be a lot of fun, and it's the fact that once you learn Reiki, it tends to change how you live, and in a very positive way. Now, keep in mind, learning a healing modality like Reiki that's holistic, there's no dogmatic demands or things you must do or you must give up. Um, there are some suggestions of things that might help as you're going into the training and after you've done your training, but there by no means is any part of it that's completely restrictive. But once you initiate the training, the part I find so fascinating, or for me, was that many life changes that I wanted to make, they were a lot easier to make. I had a lot less resistance. I had much more self-awareness. Naturally, my stress levels were so much lower. And at the time when I first learned Reiki, particularly my biggest source of stress was work. It really helped me cope with stress at work. And then just even little things like how you eat and how you sleep. So Reiki as a lifestyle. I would say one of the changes I notice, and I'm aware of in other Reiki practitioners, is that um, the way you approach your mornings tends to change once you've been attuned to Reiki. And what that is because you have that attunement and you've got that training and awareness, you tend to take your mornings, I don't want to say more seriously, but um, I know for myself, once I became attuned to Reiki, that um, I could no longer just sort of get out of bed, get my cup of coffee, rush to work and rush. Um, that I could feel that kind of starting my day and that kind of rush nature impacted my energy, made it harder to think. Definitely, I didn't deliver the same quality of care as I would once I understood that, at least for me, those mornings needed to be slower, quieter, rather than get out of bed and run to something. I need to get out of bed and get in at least 5 minutes of some deep breathing. Even better if I could get in some time to do some yoga. Um, and what I just realized probably just even a few weeks ago this change, major change in my lifestyle, that I lost the ability to just get out of bed and just rush. If I'm running late, if there's an emergency, I can. But for the most part, even when my days start really early, that I somehow wedge in a little time just to have a few deep breaths, clear my head, and then start the day. And as far as I know, I think most folks that practice Reiki in their life have some similar approach to starting their day. Um, Next is throughout the day, and I know for me this gets fun because I have many patients that are aware that I'm encouraged and I'm open to holistic modalities. So for me as a practicing physician, I have lots of patients that carry crystals and that have they see a psychic and they're into other healing modalities, and I love it. I just find that part so much fun that because I've, changed my energy and tuned a little bit, that I attract individuals that are open to other things. And it brings a really interesting dynamic. And it's often, well, I think for every practicing physician, I learned from my patients. I'm always learning from my patients. They teach me. So I get to learn a lot of really interesting things from my patients that understand that I'm their traditional doctor and will take care of their screening and their cancer prevention, those kind of things. But they can also tell me that what happened with their Ayurvedic healer and what recommendation were given. And so, and I learned, but then in addition to that, it's so much fun. When I first learned Reiki, I thought I would actually become vegetarian. And I've had just like a funny assumption that, like, after you learn this healing modality, you would be so zenned out that you would only eat the purest foods and you would only eat like in sacred settings with candles lit and really quiet. Um, Now, that was my own little weird fantasy. So I will say that no, I didn't become vegetarian. However, um, because of the calmness, because of the daily practice that became automatic after that first 21 days after the attunement, and then from there it just felt pretty automatic to do some kind of Reiki every day. Um, it became much easier for me to make healthier dietary choices. And that part, and it's funny because even though I've practiced Reiki for a few years, I just now realized the gradual changes I'd made over the years. And with very little resistance, was able to lose some unwanted pounds and still losing. And that's so nice because it never felt very difficult. And I think in parts because of calming my nervous system, having this kind of practice that um, as I'm selecting my groceries or thinking about what I'm going to eat, and I understand that my system, my mind, my body is just going to run slower than the rest of the world. So I need to plan ahead. And I don't like a rushed lunch. And I don't feel good if I eat a big old bowl of carbs at lunch. And I prefer a light dinner and even a light breakfast. When I figured those things out by just simply slowing down my mind, by having my mindfulness practice every day, um, I was able to make some shifts that were fairly painless. And I know from others that practice Reiki, they've noticed similar findings. And I know some individuals it's gone even further where because they have this mindfulness practice, they push like athletically. They could, train for marathons and like really accomplish like really big things. So you don't think about it because, Reiki is kind of a practice where you're going to typically be still. But if you have like, a goal, like maybe you want to train for a marathon, having a practice like Reiki can really, really help. You'd be surprised. The next place for me that practicing Reiki has definitely helped has been um, with dealing with workplace stress and preventing burnout. Um, and this topic for me, having experienced burnout, is one of the most important. And if you follow my site or follow some of my my writing on my blog, I am working on projects to help individuals deal with burnout. So, don't know much about other industries, but I know in healthcare, even before the pandemic of 2020, there was a widespread sense and crisis of individuals working at every level feeling overwhelmed by the volume of work, feeling that they weren't getting much return as far as feeling that their work was showing improvement. Um, they could feel they were saving human lives, but then there's other things with it, and the way healthcare has changed so rapidly in the last few years, and then even more so in the year 2020. But having a mindfulness practice, a meditation practice, some kind of self healing practice like Reiki is going to be one of the strongest ways that I think individuals who work in very stressful environments can protect their energy and protect their own health. And I think the biggest thing is to have that warning system to let them know when maybe they've absorbed too much energy or haven't blocked enough. And for me personally, after having gone through burnout and then having my own period of time to heal myself, now I actively use Reiki just for that means. And by all means, I'm not at all immune to it. I actually feel, I think, much of what other doctors feel as far as stress, worry for the population, worry for my own health, worry about bringing home a transmissible disease to my mother that lives with me. However, because I have understood my energy body, understood where I carry energy and how I move through the world, um, I am able to plan and understand that, some of my strengths will be planning, where my weaknesses are reacting quickly, and knowing how to navigate my work around that. And I think for individuals who may be afraid they're going to have burnout or have gone through burnout or burnout has already happened to them and has maybe done its damage, I think there's a real place for having a practice like Reiki that you can learn on your own, practice on your own, um, start to let it blend in other parts of your life in healing and maybe even with return back to that vocation. Finally, the lifestyle that aspect I think benefits greatly from being a Reiki practitioner is sleep. Is sleep. Um, Insomnia, which yeah, I have aside, I think we've covered like chakras and insomnias, and there should be some blog post on that as well. And I'll try to find those, put them in link. But insomnia is one topic I'll often go back to. That it's in Western medicine we make it a diagnosis when it really is a symptom. Rarely can someone just simply not sleep. There's usually something at the root of why you can't sleep. And although things like if you are having issues that you need to work with a behavioral health with a counselor or a therapist, um, or if you're having clinical psychiatric issues like depression, um, your insomnia will probably be part of it, and it should be an actively discussed part of your care plan. Um, but for everyone else who maybe has an occasional insomnia, or maybe you really don't have any other issues that you're aware of, such as generalized anxiety or depression, and you're having sleep trouble, it's one of the topics that, although you can discuss it with someone, um, and I've been doing this for years, you can discuss it and aspects of it, what wakes you up, why you can't go back to sleep. Um, you can discuss it hours and hours, but um, rarely can another person truly help you figure out what is keeping you awake because it is your own experience. It's your own experience. They're not there with you. There's so many aspects to it. There's so many habits learned that you sort of train yourself to sleep poorly. And this is where I think having a practice like Reiki that you practice on your own, and not just once, you really would need to give it a chance by working on yourself daily for at least 3 weeks, maybe even longer, to get your own insight into what's going on in your mind, in your body, that's disrupting your sleep. Um, and of course, when I work with my patients, I actually enjoy discussing this topic with them. But I also know that when the person brings it to me, because we don't have the awareness and we don't have the insight, I can probably only take them so far because I'm just not there with them. And until they get that deeper insight, we won't know why their sleep is disrupted. And finally, as a lifestyle, I think for me personally, becoming a Reiki practitioner has really helped me with my interpersonal interactions, in friendships, relationships, and at work. It's helped me to understand what is my reaction, what's really being reflected back to me. And very important because I tend to be someone, although I'm doing a podcast, which is funny, it really goes against my nature. It actually really goes against my nature because I'm actually an introvert. So although I'm talking on this podcast in my day-to-day life, I'm a listener and I'm an introvert. And one of the places I tend to struggle is actually expressing myself when it's necessary. So having learned that awareness and having, had something like Reiki to sit back on and realize that sometimes my lack of expression, and how it shows up, why it might show up, has really helped me in situations where I maybe would have been nervous or stressed out in. So, once again, thank you so much for joining me for today's podcast. As always, my website is available, which is healingartshealthandwellness.com, which you can find in the show notes. And I will be offering some online courses. I'm starting with Reiki, and then I will move on to some integrative medicine topics later this year. It has been wonderful spending time with you, and I thank you so much. Bye bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Art of Healing podcast. Once again, this is Charlize. You can find out more about me at www.healingartshealthandwellness.com. Did you know I have a blog as well as online courses? Check your show notes to sign up for more information about Healing Arts Health and Wellness. Thank you. Please feel free to share this episode with your friends, family, and loved ones.